and how to get things in the right, proper way. And being the founder of the Fiscal Fox, this is something that's really important to me. So it's not a secret strategy. I'm not going to tell you to buy some hot investment. I'm not going to tell you that you're going to get rich overnight. Um, but the order that you build wealth in really does matter. I know this from experience. I know this because the people that I've worked with over the past 15 years tend to be people that are already wealthy, whether it be from family ties, inheritance, big business, what have you. They're already at that point. And a lot of them are at that point because they did things in the right order. Someone showed them, and they're continuing to do things in that right order. They're teaching their children are teaching their children, et cetera, et cetera. And a big reason for why the Fiscal Fox became to be, because I never had to do this, I never had to step out of just being an investment advisor, is because there is an absolute huge part of the population missing when it comes to the financial world and investing. And that's women, that's newer, younger investors. And it's not because you're any less intelligent, willing, wanting to learn. It's just you got left out of the conversation one way or another. And so we have to fix that because we got to break that cycle of paycheck to paycheck, wondering where all the money went. You get a raise and like there's still nothing to show. You get married, you have a double income, still there's like something missing in your rhythm and you just don't know what it is. And it's really not that complicated. The financial industry wants you to think that it's very complicated and all these spreadsheets and budget tools, and it's very simple. And so that's my little preliminary with that. But another thing that I've noticed is that people often say you're just going to get a ton of random financial advice, whether you're watching TV, you're on TikTok, you're on Instagram, you're talking to your dad, you're talking to a coworker, you're literally going to be told 20 different things if you even bring up money. You're going to say, oh, you just need to buy rental homes. Oh, you just need to match your 401k. Oh, you just need to keep more cash. You need to get a life insurance policy, like whole life or something. It's overwhelming for anybody. And so when you leave this webinar tonight, even if you just take one step, you might already be 3 steps in this order I'm going to show you. But if you're here, more than likely, I know for one thing, you're eager to learn. You're taking the time out for yourself. You're almost like 50% ahead of other people. Most people stick their head in the sand. They're waiting for someone else to fix their problems. And you just, at some point or another, you have to be motivated enough to say, this is not how I'm going to do things anymore. I don't want this super restrictive budget life either, but somebody has got to crack the code because this is getting ridiculous. And we are surrounded by people that appear to be living way beyond their means in a very tight, high inflationary environment. And it's like, what is going on? And I'll get into that shortly, my theories on that. So here we go. Hello. Once again, I'm Amy, and I switched from being in a survival mindset with money, even as a financial advisor, growing up with a father who's a financial advisor. For some reason, I like skipped all of the steps and just immediately made all these mistakes in my 20s, even with the education I had, the background I had. So I guess that's what makes me unique, is that I really had a lot of shame because I was 35. I'm now 39. And I just left a toxic relationship. I was completely drained. I had to move back home with my mom and dad for like 2 months. I'd also been married previously. Here I was, this financial professional, and I'm like in this situation that I put myself in. Now I have done the therapy, I've done all the things. So honestly, like I know the relationship mistakes that I made. However, there were a lot of things that happened along the way that I could have maybe paid more attention to that would have helped me get out of this ditch a lot faster, I think. So I learned how to get my money back in order. And just keep in mind, for like 3 or 4 years, my salary remained the same, but like I was in debt, broke, and driving a car I had no business driving. I had just bought a house because I could not live at home for more than 2 or 3 months. And it was a crazy time. But I was like, my eyes are on the horizon. I'll pull myself out of this like a cat. I will survive. So once you go through something like that, you never want to go through it again. And when you come out on the other side, as some of you have experienced before, you have a whole new appreciation for like having a nice savings account, seeing your money do what it's supposed to do, and like never allowing that BS to like happen in your life again. So that's really my story. But I do have a background. I have a Series 65. Like I said, I help other people build their wealth. I help people from the ground up. I help people that are already wealthy. Been doing it a long time. You can check my credentials on brokercheck.org if you really want to, or I guess I could have shown that here. But the thing that was missing in the world of investing and still is missing, but is getting better, is women entering into this conversation and not letting it just be sort of a male dominated area. And that's just what needs to happen because the transition of wealth is coming and more women are getting married later, having children later, staying in their careers longer, living longer. And a lot of us are the ones that are going to be in head of the household or on our own or just having our own separate wealth. So you just don't want to be in a situation where you get into that and you don't know what to do. So these are just some thoughts that, if any of these sort of stick out to you, feel free to drop a yes in the chat if you want. Otherwise, just sit back and tell me if any of this sort of feels familiar. But I have money sitting in a checking account because I don't know where it belongs. I've made money mistakes and I'm embarrassed about it. The market feels like chaos. I don't want to lose everything. Retirement feels like a freaking million years away. So this is the survival mindset. And you either developed this from childhood, from seeing someone around you, a mentor, a family member, a sister. You've seen something, whether you know it like consciously or not, somewhere along the way, you've been betrayed or you've seen something that was super stressful that puts you in a place of fear of scarcity, fear of, doing things wrong and somehow getting behind. And so your brain sort of starts to sabotage you and work against you. Even if the familiar that you're used to sucks and you want to improve it, you will stay longer in that familiar than you will in something that's better for you, but that's unfamiliar. So trying to make that sound a little bit better. The good news, though, is that none of this is a character flaw. All of this can be changed. It's literally a behavioral thing. That's why if you're ADHD a little bit like me, you need a list, a grocery list, so to speak, a roadmap, something that's not super boring, that's pretty straightforward without all the fluff and hype and everything. That's just like, hey, 1, 2, 3, 4. If I can do step 2, I can do step 3, and so on and so on. And it's okay if you just do step 1 for a little while. I had to do step 1 for like 2 years, and then I could get back into the rhythm of stuff and back to where I'm at right now, which took a little bit, but got it done. So let me show you how this looks. This is sort of where, before we get into the roadmap, why people do stay stuck. Okay. Without a plan, you get paid, it goes into your checking account, it goes to pay your bills. And then the rest of it, you're like, I didn't feel like downloading that stupid budget app. I don't care. I don't want to look at that. Like there's too much going on. So the roadmap comes in where it's like, all right, I've already made this decision. We're not doing this anymore. So I've got my income, my purpose, protection, growth, financial freedom, options, whatever you want that to look like, not stress, not stress. So this is where you give every dollar a job. And trust me, it's a lot simpler than you think. And I wish I'd known this a long time ago. Okay, the roadmap. And I'll get deeper into this like as we go. But this is really the entire webinar. I mean, if you leave with anything, you leave right now, just screenshot this, hold on to this. But I am going to go into each thing and just dive into it a little bit. We're going to stay surface, not get too technical. But if you remember nothing else, remember this. Every account has a different job, but when you put them together, it creates like a magical dance and it will create wealth. It might take a little bit of time at first, but once you start setting your brain in this rhythm, I swear it changes things slowly but surely. Sometimes faster, if you're really like motivated to get things moving this way. But don't worry, we're going to go through each one and sort of get you more comfortable with some of these terms. So, yes, my least favorite slide, high interest debt. Right now in the US, I think I read this morning that America is at the highest debt range or debt levels that it's been in ever. I think 1.25 trillion was the number of that Americans are carrying in debt. That's almost like, I think 35% of Americans have more than $10,000 in credit card debt. And you're like, why? Why all of a sudden? Because credit cards have been around a long time and they've always had those 20%. Well, now, actually, I've seen some as high as 30% interest on them. But people stay in debt because when interest compounds against you, your money cannot work for you. You've got to make it stop working against you. And once you sort of stop those leaks, you can protect yourself better. However, life happens, car transmissions go out, dogs have to go to the vet, kids have to go to the doctor. And so it happens. And sometimes you just have to go ahead and swipe that credit card. I had to swipe that credit card. I remember the feeling of being like, this costs what? I got to do this for this. And just in the moment, you just, and all through my younger years in college, even high school, I was never allowed to have a credit card. And it wasn't discussed why. It was just, no, it's bad. Only use money that's in your debit account. So I was very much like, okay, as long as I have money from a paycheck in my debit account, I'm fine. But you don't really learn what happens when you don't have money in that debit account. What happens when, your boyfriend or your husband goes and gets on DraftKings and gambles away all of your money for next month's bills. What happens when things don't come through, that bonus you were expecting doesn't come through, or like school is now increasing the tuition payments, or insurance is going up, which it always is, health insurance. So anyways, the things to avoid, obviously, we all know this, credit cards. Those interest rates are insane. And I know that it's been discussed that they want to start lowering these rates because it's almost like loan sharks. When you hit this mark where you're paying almost 30% interest on a balance that you owe, they're expecting that you are never going to climb out of that hole. So avoid those if you can. But if you do get into that situation, there's a strategy to get out. Obviously, you would hit it as hard as you can when you can. And for the most part, you just want to remember that you can always transfer to another credit card if you have to. I had to do this. So I mentioned I was 2 years in debt. Typically, these promotional credit cards will have 0% interest for like a year, maybe longer. You write down on a calendar somewhere, alert yourself in your phone of like 3 days before that credit card switches to interest, and you go do a little transfer balance to another credit card. It's the small things like that that make a huge difference. So yeah, you'll have to pay a little bit in what's called a transfer fee when you're moving this $10,000 debt balance to another credit card. But I would much rather pay 3% transfer balance on that than get hit with a 30%. Like it just gets insane. And then mentally you just shut off. And I have a friend that is going through this, and I literally showed her what to do, and she's just so bogged down by it that it's been like 3 months and she's still getting hit with like 20% interest on $8,000. And I'm like, what are you doing? So anyways, you just got to like shake it off and just do it. Just get through it. So you got to pay it off. As soon as you pay this stuff off, this is step one. Then you can start getting into like the better feeling type steps, which is what we're really going for here. So the emergency fund, okay? I don't love them because they make you rich. I love them because they keep people invested. Without one, like every medical bill, every flat tire, every emergency or broken AC, it becomes like a crisis. And you want to stay out of those financial ditches if you can. So I was not someone who was raised to keep a lot of money in savings. It was more so like keep what you need for bills and then, put the rest of it, maybe invest it, do that. But here's the problem. If you run into a situation where you go into $5,000 in debt immediately, I'm not thinking about investing my money for the future anymore. I'm thinking about, oh my God, how do I get out of this? And so when you get in that state of mind, it'll snowball, and it's just not something that you want to get into. So you need that peace of mind with an emergency fund. I typically recommend putting them in a high yield savings account. High yield savings accounts have not always had the yields that they have on them. You can find anything between 3 and 5%. More lately, I'm seeing like 3, maybe 4%, depending on where you find a high yield savings account. Most of these banks are going to be online, but as long as it's FDIC insured, you're good to go. A couple that I've used are Ally, SoFi. I think Capital One might have one, but nerdwallet.com has got a great section where you can look up different high yield savings accounts. And look, 3%, it's not that great, okay? But that's not what it's designed to do. It's like they're just going to, instead of you putting your money at a bank and them charging you to keep your money there, these banks are trying to get you to come put your money, and then they're going to pay you just to have your money sit there. So I would rather 3% because it's keeping up with inflation than I would. First of all, it's sitting there earning nothing, which is technically losing money if you think about it. uh, and then, yeah, so it's kind of a no-brainer. And a lot of people, I have a friend, I'm sorry to keep bringing people up. They might even be in here right now, but I have a friend that she just doesn't trust the idea of a high. She's like, if it's not a bank I can walk into, I'm not going to do it. And I'm like, okay, well, then just enjoy that your money is literally negative sitting in there. And there's also people that truly just want to see a big number on their screen on their checking and savings, and they might have a savings that earns them like 0.01%. Look, if this is you, it's okay. You're going to stop doing that right now, though. You're going to get a high yield savings account at the very least. So, and it's for emergencies only, not vacations. And the goal, like it says here, it's not about high returns. It's about just having something to keep you out of the financial ditches so you sleep better at night and you got something to protect you. And you're sort of wanting anywhere from 3 to 6 months of essential expenses in there. Sometimes people want as much as a year. It totally depends on your situation. If you're a single mother and you got 2 kids and you have a no good ex-husband, you might want a year or something socked away in there. For me, I like about 6 months because I've been on the bad side of going into debt. So it's like I like a little extra cushion. So for me, I feel comfortable when I see about 15 to 20,000 in my high yield savings account, and I'm still building it back because anyways, I'm still working at it, but I'm almost there, and it just feels better every time I look at it, and it's in a high yield savings account, so I'm getting a little bit off the top, so that's nice. Next, okay, your employer match. For those of you who do not have a small business and you don't work for yourselves, don't fear not. Running a small business is not for the sane. It's for the crazy people. And if you're one of the crazy people, then I'm talking to you. But if you have ever in your life worked for a big company, corporation, what have you, more than likely part of your incentive package when they hired you was a 401k or some other type of retirement plan if you worked for the state or you were a teacher or you worked for a church or what have you. There was something that they incentivized to get you to work this job, because I'm telling you, it wasn't the salary alone. It's usually the health insurance, the PTO, and your retirement account. So 401k, not a marathon, it's a retirement account. And they are basically set up to encourage the average American to save for retirement because more than likely Social Security is not going to be enough for any of us. And not all of us are expecting inheritance. And so this is a way, if you are a W-2 worker, that they are encouraging you to put money away. And it's a great deal, especially if you have a good employer that sets a nice little match to encourage you to put at least that amount in there. I've seen anything from 3% match to 6% to 100%. It just depends on where you work. But that's something that's very important when you go to the table, when you're being hired or you're doing job interviews, that you ask them, hey, what is the retirement plan for this company? And do you match? Because, like I said, they're usually factoring that in instead of giving you a higher salary. So you want to at least get what the match is. So if they're offering 100%, like if you're putting in 3%, they're going to match your 3% fully. You have to get it. That's 100% return on your money. You're never going to see that anywhere else, right? So it would sort of be like, imagine your boss walking into the office and he's like, hey, I have a few $1,000s with your name on it. Would you say like, no, thanks. Like you can keep that. No, you would take the money always. Never give up free money, no matter what. And you'd be surprised at how many people just skip doing this altogether. And I'm like, absolutely not. If you're not going to put away a good amount, at least get the match. So make it your first priority, honestly, after you've got your emergency stuff. I mean, your emergency fund set up, you don't have high interest credit card debt. If you have an employer that has one of these 401k plans for you, you should participate in it. And there's more detail that go into it, but we're not going to dive super deep. And you can always ask me questions about it later if you would like. So now that we're getting free money, let's talk about one of my favorite accounts. This would come as a supplement, potentially, if you have a 401k. It's called a Roth IRA. I bet many of you have actually heard of Roth IRAs. It's sort of like the flashier of the retirement accounts because it has the whole concept of everything you put into it, you've already paid taxes on, and anything you earn within it, it's just a vehicle that you put your money into and then you invest. Any growth you get within that vehicle of a Roth IRA is tax-free at retirement. You could make 13,000% and the government gets zero of that when you go to start drawing it after 59 and a half. So I really like Roth IRAs. It's actually one of my favorite tools. So if you have a 401k, at least get the match. And then you can open a Roth IRA separately. You can open them at many places like Charles Schwab, Fidelity, E-Trade. These are just places where you can open accounts like any other bank. And it takes 5 minutes to open a Roth IRA if you qualify, and most people do. If you're uber wealthy, you don't get to have a Roth IRA. Sorry. But if you're a regular person, more than likely you can have a Roth IRA and contribute to it. It's really important to remember that this one's all about time. Obviously, the earlier you start, the better. The more time you have, the more heavy lifting it can do for you versus finding the best stocks, the best investments that are going to get you a really good return really quickly. So, I love a Roth IRA. I highly recommend them. We're going to jump to one of my next favorite accounts that I don't talk about often, and you really don't hear about it often either. I won't deep dive it too much, but it's called a health savings account, HSA. And there's also FSAs, but we're not talking about them because I don't like them. HSAs are great. I call it the unicorn of the investment accounts. It's one of the most tax efficient accounts available. If you have one of the main things, you might just tune out if you don't have this, but if you have a high deductible health plan, you will qualify typically for having an HSA. And some employers offer HSAs also as an incentive. So anything that you put in this bad boy is tax deductible. I think the max for a single person right now is $4,400. So if I, Amy Anderson, decide to put $4,400 into a health savings account, I can deduct that 4,400 from my income that year. So it's tax deductible. That's the first tax benefit. It grows tax deferred, meaning it's growing, it's not getting taxed, it's free reign to do as it pleases. And then the best part, tax-free withdrawals for qualified medical expenses, whatever those may be. Y'all, that can be skincare, that can be medications, that can be surgeries, that can be a lot of different things. It just all has to kind of fall under a certain guideline. So it's with people living longer, with us trying to be healthier in our lives and everything like that. An HSA is actually a really cool tool, and it rolls over every year. So let's say there's a year where you literally go to the doctor one time and you spend like, I don't know, $500 that year, and you use your HSA, and the rest of the 3,500 is still in there invested, because it can be invested and grow just like any other retirement account or investment account. It can roll over to the next year. There's no issue with that whatsoever. And so it can keep growing. I mean, you could get to 59 and a half or 65, and this could be, a large part of your retirement. And anything you go to pull out of it, if you have medical expenses, which tend to increase the older we get, you'll have this in the background that was tax deductible when you put the money in it. It grew without any sort of taxes on it, on the growth, anything. And then if you're using it for medical reasons, there's no tax and there's no penalties and there's nothing. So it really is like a triple leveraged, bad boy of an investment account, in my opinion. I've been using HSAs for like 3 or 4 years. I have yet to let an amount roll over because I'm kind of bad about using it for a lot of medical things, dermatology, chiropractic, things like I'm going to actually make it a goal to not use my HSA as much next year, because I do want to see potentially what I can grow it to. So think of it as a healthcare emergency fund with tax benefits. So just kind of a neat one, but not everybody qualifies for them, so I won't go too deep. Okay, now step 6. If we have reached this point in the roadmap, you're doing really, really well, okay? Because this tends to show up when it's your flexible investing account. So once again, number 1, we've eliminated high credit card debt. Hooray for us. Number 2, we have a nice plump high yield savings account that we're using for emergencies and keeping us out of credit card debt and financial crisis. If we want to leave a relationship, if we want to get rid of this car and get something new, emergencies sort of like that, then that's what it's there for. And whenever you deplete it a little bit, don't beat yourself up. That's what it was there for. You're not in debt. It's okay. You can start over. Number 3, wait, what was number 3? Oh, it was your employer match, right? Yep, it was employer match. And that was just 401k, making sure you get that match, because like I said, it's usually a part of your package when you are hired somewhere. And it's not a bad thing. It grows just like most investment accounts do, depending on what it's invested in. But it's something that a lot of people count on for their future. Then you've got your Roth IRAs, which you can put as much as 7,500 in a year. That's the max. So that's why it's kind of cool to start with those when you're a little bit younger, if you can, because the more time you have to put as much money as you can, the max every year. I'm going to show you at the end a really cool example of what that can look like for you. But it's never too late to open a Roth IRA. I mean, I opened one at 30. I didn't start in my 20s. And I've been contributing to it every year, and I love to look at it because I know all the earnings I have on it, which is pretty good with the past couple of years of investing, is tax-free when I go to draw on it. And it's a flexible account too. And then we went over HSAs, which are just, if you qualify, it's a nice thing to add because it does cover health emergencies or health things like that. And it helps you tax-wise. Brokerage account. Step 6, if you make it here, you are, like I said, doing amazing. It allows you to keep building wealth beyond your retirement goals. It's a flexible investing account. Think of it as a checking account to invest in, meaning there's no contribution limits on it. There's no real IRS rules with it. It's literally like, hey, I have all this extra money. I've already maxed out my 401k. I've maxed out my Roth IRA. And I just want something that's a little more liquid that I can have access to without any worry of penalty or tax or things like that. And I just want to put it, in this fund or in this stock or in this bond and just let it go. And it's a nice addition. And I think even if you only have $10 to put into it, just open one. It's not going to hurt you. There's no penalty to leave it there with zero in it for a while. I have one right now that was sitting with zero in it for the past like 3 years. And I just put like 10,000 in one that I had in my savings account because I was like, I just wanted to make a little bit more return and I wanted it to go towards a future purchase that I have over the next 2 years. And so but it sat at zero for years, but I finally had a little bit of extra to put into a brokerage account at Charles Schwab. And so you really see these come into play, meaning like you have one open and it's perfect for when larger amounts of money come through. Like maybe you get something from an insurance claim, an inheritance, a work bonus, proceeds from selling a property. So it's really good for when you have unexpected wealth coming your way and you already have one of these open. I'll give you an example. So I have a client and I'll call her Jennifer in this instance. She's in her 20s. She's a rare client because I don't normally have someone that age coming to me wanting to make sure their life is in order. I certainly was not at that age. It's awful to think about. But she was just way more adult for her age. And so she came to me and she said, I never want to be dependent on anyone. I watched other people and family members in my life become dependents on other people, and I'm terrified of that. I didn't go to college. I didn't do this and that, but I have this small business. I'm making good money. What do I need to be doing? And so we set up the roadmap, just like I'm showing you tonight, making sure she crossed her T's, dotted her I's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we opened a brokerage account. She has a Roth IRA. She has a brokerage account. And for a while, all we worried about was the Roth IRA. Like, let's just make sure we're putting in what you need for that every year. And then all of a sudden, one of her grandparents decides to give her like a small part of some inheritance that she had as something. Like nobody passed away, but she had a little bit of money that came to her that she had already put as much as she could put into a Roth IRA. But because she had this type of account open, she was like, instead of just letting it sit in my checking account where I might spend it, or I might do whatever, I'm going to go ahead and throw it into this brokerage account that Amy opened for me that's been sitting at zero and put this money to work. And that's what we've been doing. And so when people like that come to me and we have that sort of connection and we get money working in that way, I have full belief that they're going to be 100% okay. Especially at that age, like I really wish that I had been more responsible in my 20s, but hindsight is 2020. So what can you invest in? All right. This is the part where people tend to get they want to get real technical with it. And we're just not. We're going to keep it really simple. And for people that are new to investing, it can be a little bit intimidating to talk about stocks and mutual funds and ETFs. And it just sounds like a bunch of jargon and whatnot. But it's really not that crazy. Just think about like grocery shopping. Like you're putting things in a basket. You're hoping that they're going to give you a good return. You're hoping all these good things happen and that you're getting better than 3% that you get in a high yield savings account. So we'll start off with a stock, right? So when you have whether it's a Roth IRA, a brokerage account, a 401k, whatever, those are just the vehicles, right? And you can put your money all day in those vehicles, but then you have to do a very key thing. You have to buy something inside of them in order to get a return. So a high yield savings account, backtrack, you just put your money in it, you get 3% for no risk, whatever. It's just set up to do that for you. I cannot tell you, I can count on my hand the number of times people have come to me and said, "Hey, Amy, I opened that Roth IRA you told me about. How come I didn't get any return last year?" And I'm like, and I had, this is a true story. And it was a year that the market returned. When I say the market, I'll explain what that means too. It was a 25% year. And she was like, I was so excited to go log in because I keep seeing the news saying that the S&P 500 returned 25% and my account didn't. It only returned like 0.05%. And I said, well, let's take a look. And I logged in with her, and I not managing her. I just gave her the direction that she asked for. And she hadn't invested in anything. She just sort of assumed like a high yield savings account that it would just automatically, and it happens all the time because it's just a lack of communication or just something you weren't taught. It's not a big deal. However, you're not going to fall into that trap. So you open the Roth IRA, you put 7,500 in it, which is the max. You're going to either buy some stocks if you want to own individual companies, like for instance, Apple, Amazon, Visa, Google, Nvidia. These are companies that you've probably heard about. You own things from, you're using an iPad right now, you're using your phone, all these things, anything around you, the clothes you wear, the products in your hair, your skincare, your electronics, the furniture, all of it is a company that probably is something that you can own a piece of if you want to. Everybody remembers the Walmart story. Sam Walton, who started Walmart in the 70s, hired all these people to help run his different stores. And nobody thought that this was going to be like a huge thing that it is today. I mean, it's hard to even imagine. He had a lady, and I wish I knew her name, but he had a lady that she literally just turned the hot dogs in the hot dog machine, made, pennies on the hour, but she was able to get Walmart stock back then in the 70s. And if you held on to Walmart stock for like 20, 30 years and it did what it did to the grocery industry, I mean, you were a millionaire after like 30 years. I mean, that's a winner story, right? So we're not going to stay too focused on that. But that's sort of what getting to participate in owning parts of the market can do for your money. Now, for people that are not working with advisors or don't have a curiosity or interest and going that route of owning stocks, and I don't blame you, it's a full-time job, it's what I do, then you have options, right? You can own baskets of things, right? So traditionally, you've probably heard of mutual funds. Mutual funds are nothing more than a basket that holds a whole bunch of different stocks of every kind, anything from restaurants to skincare to industrials to oil to defense to technology, just so all the names that I've mentioned, like Apple, Lululemon, Google, Nvidia, Tesla, Visa, Chevrolet. I mean, you can literally own a little piece of all of that if you want, and things like mutual funds, which is a traditional, basket of investments, or the newer thing is called an ETF, which is an exchange traded fund. It's a modern basket of investments and it trades like stocks. So, meaning you can see the price every day of an ETF. And so when people say, hey, y'all, hey, Haley, you should buy the S&P 500. And you're like, what the what? This is the S&P 500. So it's 500 of the largest companies in the US that are traded every day. People buy and sell it like an auction market. And anything from Costco to McDonald's to Pepsi to Amazon. And the biggest companies are the biggest piece of the cake, right? They sort of drive everything. So if you are someone that has a full-time job, you're a mom, you're a wife, you've got too much going on, you don't want to hire an investment advisor yet, but you're like, I want to start. I need to do something. I can say wholeheartedly, if you want to do something and just stick with it for a while, look at ETFs that track the S&P 500 and just pay attention to it. Owning something that's invested in the entire market, it's very diversified. You're not going to feel as much of the ups and downs as you would owning stocks, even though I prefer to just own stocks. It just comes down to what you can handle. But Something else to be clear in, when people say don't invest in the stock market, it's like the casino, you're going to lose everything, because they had grandparents that went through a crisis, or they watched their parents go through the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis, or the dot-com bubble, or the pandemic. And I mean, it just goes on. There's always going to be something that makes the market go crazy. Just understand that in order for you to lose everything, every one of those 500 companies would have to go to zero. And that's just not going to happen. America may not be the best at everything, but we're really good at capitalism and invention and free market trade. And as long as you're someone who can stick with something for longer than a year, you'll be just fine. You just have to accept what it is. If you're someone who can't handle any sort of movement whatsoever, then the stock market may not be for you, and you may need to just really be good at saving, like really good. But I'm telling you from experience, if men can do it, we can do it. If there's any men on here, I don't mean that as an offense. There's probably not, though. So all in all, this is your wealth roadmap. Stop those leaks, build that high yield savings account emergency fund, capture that free money at work with your 401k match, open a Roth IRA. If you don't already have one, you probably have one. But if you don't, open one. It, like I said, like a brokerage account too, opening these doesn't hurt you. You might open it and be like, I need to think about how much I'm going to put in it. Okay, that's okay. Go ahead and open it though. It take, like I said, 5 minutes to open a Roth IRA. If you have a high deductible health plan, you might want to consider something like an HSA, and then a brokerage account for also something you could just have open in the rare situation that you get a surprise amount of money somewhere. I'll give you one more example, and I swear I won't go too long. I have another friend. Yes, my clients are my friends for the most part. And let's say her name is Aubrey. She just started investing this year. She is my age. We have known each other a long time. She is terrified of all of this stuff. But I said, too bad. Like, we need to get you straightened out, because I don't want you to depend on anybody else for anything and whatever. That's just my passion. And so she came into a bit of money from an insurance. What do you call it? Like, she got into a bad car accident. Insurance finally came through, and she won a settlement. And it was a decent amount. I mean, honestly, she got very lucky, because for the past like 20 years, she hadn't done anything at all. No savings, no investing, nothing. And then it sucks that she got in a bad car accident. Thank God she's okay. But there is about 20 years worth of investing that falls in her lap. And also, she's lucky that I'm her friend, because I was like, we need to hurry up before the vultures start showing up and wanting that money, and we need to put it somewhere. Because within about a day, she had insurance salespeople calling her, because they can figure out when you get a large sum of money in your bank account, all of a sudden everybody's interested in you and wants to call you. They've never called you before, but all of a sudden they've got the right product for you. Yeah. So anyways, we got her situated. We put her in a brokerage account because it was a large sum of money and she needed to quickly get it involved. But had she not had me as a friend or known who to ask, she probably would have just kept it sitting in a savings account, because that felt safe. Not even a high yield savings account. She probably would have just kept it in one of those old savings accounts that yields nothing. And to let a large sum of money do that is a crime against you in the long run. So having this roadmap in place, when situations like that do happen, you'll know what to do. You're not going to be scrambling, stressed out, because you're stressed when you don't have money and you're stressed when you do have money. You may not think that right now. You're like, if a bunch of money fell into my lap right now, I know exactly what I'd do with it. No, you don't, because I wouldn't. I would think, oh, there's like 100 things I want to do. But if I have something that I'm like, okay, at least I'll add a little bit here. I'll max this out. I'll put a little bit extra in my brokerage account. Once you check those off, then you do what you need to do with whatever the surplus is. But you've got to take care of future you now. So it's all about just more choices, less stress. Zen. All the time zen. Okay, we're almost done, guys. We're almost done. Stick through it. All right, time does the heavy lifting. What do I mean by this? Compounding interest. Yes, this is where school comes in. money matters because time matters even more. Uh, it may not seem exciting to start investing, but once you get started, you get to see this neat little thing called compounding interest, right? And that's this beautiful chart here. Hopefully, you guys can see it okay. And this is real. This is not magic. This is not some specialty product I'm showing you. This is literally, you can find this on the IRS's website. You can find this on, I use NerdWallet all the time because it's just got a nice, friendly calculator that I can show to someone. But this is why time matters and consistency matters almost more than picking the right stocks or the right perfect investments, okay? Because if you were to put $7,000 a year for 30 years, and I realize that's a lot of money, it's like 200 to 10,000, and you're estimating a 10% rate of return, which historically speaking is what the stock market can return and has returned for the past 100 years. And let's say every year you're good about contributing, and you don't have to do this every year, but let's say for the most part, you're contributing, whether it's monthly or in a lump sum, 7,000 a year, because that's the max you can put in like a Roth IRA. This is sort of what you can expect if you have 30 years of growth. And look, you might even get a better rate of return than this. I mean, I aim for a better rate of return than this, but this is sort of what you can expect if you keep your money in the market and give it time to grow. Meaning you can have 20% up years, you can have 10% down years, you can have 50% up years, but over time, you're hoping that you're getting this sort of smoothed out number, this average return. So 210,000, walk away with 1.4 million, not bad. Okay, you're not going to get this in a savings account. You're just not. I'm sorry. And if you get Social Security, that's just the cherry on top. Let's hope that it's still there because we've all paid into it. All right. So the biggest cost, I don't want you to think that you need to already be wealthy to start investing. Like you just need to start $10, $50, $100, whatever you can start automatically transferring to an account that's set up, the better you will be. And whether you want to pick stocks or you want to do ETFs or mutual funds, it's better than doing nothing. And I promise it will make a difference in your future. I can speak from personal experience. Clients of mine can speak from personal experience. It's just, and friends of mine that don't even work with me, that have to deal with me talking about this stuff all the time, can tell you this is what you need to be doing. I made this today and I was driving to work and I heard the song Boa, and Megan Thee Stallion, the queen, said they bought Birkins, I bought stock. Okay. And I love that because she's a pop symbol. You listen to her, kids listen to her, she's cool. And instead of talking about emphasizing this idea of like the spend culture, she's like, no, I'm buying stock because that's a bigger investment than buying a Birkin. Okay. So, anyways, I just thought that was funny. So if you want to stay in touch with me, already do what you're doing. Okay. I just want to thank y'all again for coming tonight. Hopefully you heard most of it. Cassie's saying that it went out about a minute ago, so that's fine. I was not saying anything important a minute ago. I was really just talking about how, yes, I'm an investment advisor, but at the end of the day, like I'm passionate about this stuff. I don't want to see other women suffer in silence. So don't be that. You have someone that's willing to talk to you and listen to you. You don't have to go sit down with someone that makes you uncomfortable or you don't feel heard or seen by. That's the worst thing. I was lucky enough to grow up in a household where we did talk about money. We did talk about things, but I still made a lot of mistakes. And I just don't want other people to make those mistakes because they didn't ask the questions they wanted to ask when they were coming up. So if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in. If you think of it later, you have my email. You can message me on Instagram. I always see anything anybody sends to me and I'll reply. But other than that, I hope that you got something out of tonight and I hope that you come to future webinars. Well, I will make sure that this stupid thing is on all the way, but I appreciate y'all either way. And I hope you have a good rest of your night. Oh, wait. We have a question. 1 second here.